Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information Man
Tell
Show.
the truth. Tell the truth.
Do you want truth?
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
If you don't want truth, this is not the channel for you.
Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Tell the truth.
Yes. Truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
In the White House, I'm not gonna say his name.
Tell the truth.
Jack Lake.
Tell the truth.
If you want truth,
Tell the truth.
all right, everybody. Truth.
Tell the truth.
Okay, everybody. Let's get right into it. This is the Information Man of the Information Man Show. I want to thank everybody out there who's been supporting my program. Peace to all the mods out there doing a great job in the chat room. Peace to everyone out there who is a new subscriber to my program. I'm going to continue to do what I got to do, which is to put out the information to enlighten people, to open up one's mind and to share information because we're all learning. Thank you. If you are a regular subscriber, people who have been following me for a long term, once again, thank you for your support. So I want to get into this right now because we know that Joe Biden was running off at the mouth just this past week, talking about if you don't vote for him, then you're not necessarily black. And I think that's really weird coming from Joe Biden, given his history and his record. And one of the things that really disturbed me in the interview, the Zoom interview or whatever interview he was doing, is that he did it with Charlamagne of the Breakfast Club. And I'm telling you right now, the Breakfast Club is not a representation of the black media as far as I'm concerned, or the black community. When you look at some of the programs that they've had on there. Now, the last time they interviewed a political candidate outside of Kamala Harris, they interviewed one Hillary Clinton. And they spent all their time with Hillary Clinton playing around, toiling around, talking about what she got in her bag, hot sauce. They really never got to real hardcore issues, okay? Now, I'm going to play the audio that everyone has pretty much heard by now. And if you haven't, it's going to be Charlamagne talking to Joe Biden. And you can see how Joe Biden's wife is kind of rushing Joe Biden off of the live stream or the stream that they were having, Zoom call or whatever you want to call it. The minute that Charlamagne was speaking about, black women, black people want a black female vice president. And Charlamagne did the best he could in that area of challenging Joe Biden. But once again, I just feel like Charlamagne is the wrong person at the wrong time and decade to be talking about these issues. And at the same time, Joe Biden, once again, is doing what most politicians do. They duck and dive hard questions. This is why on this thumbnail I'm putting up here, I say pretty much no on Joe Biden. Let me do something else right here too. I pretty much say don't be fooled by Joe Biden, black people, my people out there, because I say no Jim Crow Joe, okay? Now, let me just go ahead and play the nonsense that he was saying to Charlamagne. And I think Charlamagne, once again, is the wrong person to be giving him pushback, because the Breakfast Club, they don't really do hard hitting. They spend more time playing around on that show. So let's go ahead and hear the audio.
I want to ask you about your running mate. I don't know if you saw, well, I saw the day that a news report broke that Amy Klobuchar was being vetted, and a lot of people on social media, they're not too happy about that. And it's because they want your running mate to be a black woman. I don't know if you saw the op-ed in the Washington Post by some of the leading black women voices in this country. And they feel since black women are such a loyal voting bloc and black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, they have things they want from you. And one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. Multiple.
You know,
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks. I will come back.
All right.
Look forward to seeing you in person.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, pal. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Charlamagne.
Okay, there you go with that nonsense, Joe Biden. And you can see Charlamagne saying that you can't do this to black media. And then you hear Joe Biden make the smart comment, well, you can't do it to white media, as his wife is cutting into the conversation, which I felt was very rude on her part, especially when Charlamagne was trying his best to ask the question about what are you going to do for black people, because black people did save his political ass in South Carolina. I would definitely agree with that part. That was the one part that made sense that Charlamagne stated. But once again, we have too many people in the mainstream media, like the Breakfast Club and Charlamagne, who tout themselves as black media. And to me, they are not, because they don't get to the real hardcore issues, which I'm going to get to on my program here. Okay. One of the things that was glaring is that his wife was saying, let's move on. He's got to go, because he was talking, Charlamagne was saying to him, what about black women as a vice president? I don't believe personally that white women in America would want to see a black woman become vice president, which is one heartbeat away from being president, because clearly Joe Biden has health issues, and I believe that the man is becoming senile, or a little bit of Alzheimer's catching into him, because you can see he looks very weak. I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but I have to be honest. Joe Biden does look like Sleepy Joe. Okay, so the wife rushed him off. He had to go, and he had the audacity to say, look at my record on civil rights. It's none is better. That's bullshit. He's been going around lying about how he's been such a trailblazer for civil rights. And I'm going to end that nonsense right now with just a few things that I'm going to show you and say. Okay. Then he says, well, the NAACP, they always go to the NAACP, is endorsing me. And I'm saying to myself, when has the NAACP really been that relevant to black people in America nowadays? Where has the NAACP been when it comes to the way black men have been getting treated by police in this country currently, not what they've done in the past? And when and where was the NAACP as it relates to the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia, Brunswood? I'd like to know, where were they at? So the NAACP is an organization that has been living on what it has done in the past, but I don't see their methodology really speaking to black people at the grassroots level. You see a lot of NAACP black folks on mainstream media like CNN, MSNBC, coming on there when something happens, saying a few words, but I don't really see the true activism like you see with black people on the ground trying to fight this. So let me just say that first of all, okay? Now, Joe Biden making the claim that he has a civil rights record no better than any, that's better, that no one can challenge. That's bullshit. Okay, let me play an audio for you. Hang on for just 1 minute. I'm going to play an audio for you that goes all the way back to, if I'm not mistaken, the 1994, around the time that he and his partner in crime won Bill Clinton, who was the president, signed the bill, which Joe Biden crafted this bill along with a few of his segregationist, racist senators, or those in the Senate that he was buddy with, and I'm going to break that down in just a moment. But Bill Clinton, who unfortunately some black people were saying that he was the first black president, which is, I'm sorry, completely laughable by all accounts. And it's very disrespectful. So Bill Clinton was no friend, because I know that when that bill was passed, it was powder cocaine versus crack cocaine, in which if you got caught with powder cocaine and you happen to be a white person, white kid or something like that, you weren't going to jail for 25 years, 10 years, what have you. You would get community service. You get a pat on the back. You'll be seen as a misunderstood youth. If you were black and you had crack cocaine, you were going to do mandatory sentences. And I know this for a fact because of the kind of work that I do, and I deal with guys directly who were impacted by his crime bill. Now, with that said, I want you to hear the way Joe Biden was thinking and talking back in the day around this particular time. Listen to this.
Must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malfactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families.
Now, let me stop that right there. This is very important, because he really strongly emphasized that he did not care what were the social or economic issues that brought people to drug use or people to crime. And that's a big problem in America, that America has been in denial that there are social economic reasons. We know that there's a from school to the prison pipeline and the industrial complex system of the prison system that is leading youth into prison, particularly black youth who are being targeted and being profiled by the police systems of this country. We see what's happening under COVID-19, the way black people are being treated when it comes to shelter and in versus other groups. Okay. And so he says he doesn't care, but then he turns around and says, well, that's why there's money for drug treatment and blah, 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 blah. Right. But there's a lot of black men who went to jail for selling drugs, but there were non-violent crimes that got hit with heavy sentences. I mean, we're talking about black men who were just selling marijuana, but yet today marijuana is legalized, and you've got various people, particularly white people, that are making a lot of money off of marijuana in Colorado, Oregon, and all these different states that have relaxed the laws. And you've got black men that are still in jail right now because they were selling something like marijuana. All right. And I know that in California, and in California in particular, the governor, along with the governor, starting with Jerry Brown, they've been relaxing some of the laws and trying to let people out of jail because we have an overcrowding of prisons in the California system. So they've been releasing people who have non-violent crimes, but they got there because of the bills that people like Joe Biden, who says that he's got the best civil rights record of all times as a politician, which is pure bullshit. Let's hear more of his rhetoric.
But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that.
Okay. He says that we must realize and nurture the social problems that exist, that brought and nurtured their behavior. But he's still talking about locking people up, which impacted populations in the urban environment in terms of black people who were put in a disadvantaged situation. He's still pushing the agenda of lock them up.
And I think there's a consensus among Republicans in that. Old barbed wire Republican conservatives want to hang them high. Even those folks are saying, hey, we got to deal with the root cause of this. Not one or the other, but separately. And liberal Democrats who used to say, let's look at the sociological underpinnings of why this occurred, and we have to, they're now saying, hey, look, we got to take back the streets. We'll make that fight later. So there is a consensus. I hope the remainder of the discussion, as we close out the debate in this bill, we can end that old fight. We can put it behind us. Hopefully we have, the senator from West Virginia said this is a historic moment on this bill, a consensus being reached. I think it is, but I think it's a historic moment for a political reason as well. Hopefully we will end the discussion about whether or not Republicans are Neanderthal and only want to hang them high, and Democrats are wacko liberals and only want to look at the causes. Those days are gone. Evidence of that, the Democratic senator from Delaware and the Republican conservative senator from Utah are united in a Biden-Hatch crime bill that does all the things that I just said. So as one of my relatives who remain nameless would say, God willing, and the creek not rise. This thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is, unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized.
There you go right there. Let me say this real quick. Joe Biden says that they have not been socialized. Who do you think he's talking about? He's talking about black people, black youth, all the stereotypes. Oh, they have not literally been socialized. Then when you talk about welfare and single mothers, he's clearly directly and indirectly talking about a particular group, in this case, black people. These crime bills were crafted to target black people in the community. I'm not going to get into this whole notion of people of color, because I know through research and history that these laws have particularly targeted black people. I'm going to say it like it is, and that is the truth, whether you like it or not.
Tell the truth.
Because truth has to be told, and it has to be told very fairly. I'm bringing this audio up because Biden said when he was talking to Charlamagne of the Breakfast Club that, hey, man, what are you talking about? You got to check my record. I'm endorsed by the NAACP, and Clyburn was caping for me in South Carolina. So what you got to say to that? Well, this is what I got to say to that. He likes to run around with people, and he ran around with people like this man right here on the picture, Strong Thurmond, who is a original Dixiecrat, a strong racist, who, by the way, fathered a black child that he kept a secret for many, 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 many years. Do your research on that. So Strong Thurmond was a original Dixiecrat because the Democratic Party was a very racist party, and many of the Dixiecrats jumped from the Democratic Party, Dixiecrat Party, over to the Republican Party, which is why the Republicans are the way they are today. But now it's Trump's party. And so he was carousing and kicking it with these kind of individuals. You see him on the picture smiling. Let's hear the rest of the audio, shall we?
Literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society.
All right, everybody, I'm back. Now, what was particularly interesting in what Joe Biden said there is that he said that these people will be predators. We recognize that they were created by society, but we're going to lock them up and do something about them because these predators, these black people, let me give you the real, what he's really saying. These black people are a danger to society. They're a danger to your children, you, your wife, and we got to lock them up. We've got to create a prison structure, give them hard mandatory sentences. You get caught with drugs, you get caught doing this, you're going to get 10 years, 25 years. It's really what he's saying. This from a man who claims to be real good on civil rights. This is a man that he hung out with, as I showed you the picture before, Mr. Strong Thurmond, a racist. He's smiling with him. And Joe Biden, of all accounts, has bragged about how he was friends with these individuals, how he could work with them. Let me read something to you right here. Because his relationships with these segregationists, there's about 6 of them that he had great relationships with that have done damage to us. And let me put this on the screen right here. Here it is. Joe Biden has praised segregationist James Eastland for 40 years. But it is much worse. Joe and Strong Thurmond are co-authors of the mass incarceration crime drug bill in 1982, 84, 86, and 1988. Joe Biden's friendship with old Jim Crow is what created new Jim Crow. What context? Now, putting that all in context, that's why I say right here, don't be fooled by Joe Biden. Black people don't know Jim Crow Joe. Don't be fooled by him, because if this man is such a civil rights icon, such a civil rights politician, let's put it that way, he wouldn't hang around with people like this. This is Eastland. This is Eastland was a staunch segregationist as well, one of those old Dixiecrats, racist, believed in segregation. But most importantly, Joe Biden had relationships with him and Strong Thurmond, again, as you see here on the picture. But let me name the other individuals that Joe Biden, because birds of the same feather flock together, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a breakdown of 6 of these segregationists, or these racist individuals, along with Strong Thurmond is the one that crafted the bill with him. And Strong Thurmond is a complete, I mean, we're talking about Deep South, Ku Klux Klan, hate group, individual. He had no love for black people. And Joe Biden, you can see they're kicking it with him. But check this out on this right here. Right here, you've got all 6 of them. You got Strong Thurmond. Let me name the segregationists that he was real cool with, that he was able to work with and carouse. And you probably recognize some of these folks on here right now. And here we go. We've got Strong Thurmond, that you see in the far left corner there. Jesse Helms, he worked with. John Sternin. James O. Eastland, who I just spoke of before, who's in the far right corner. We got Herman Teltman, okay, who is in the top middle. And then the classic one, who ran for president, but then he got shot. And of course, he was against the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King, is George Wallace. So these are the 6 individuals that Joe Biden worked heavily with over his years. And I understand they're all in Congress. So you, as a politician, you have to wash one hand over the other, because in politics, there's no permanent interest. There's no permanent, in politics, there's no permanent enemies. There's no permanent friendships. There's only permanent interest, is what I'm trying to say. And I understand he has to carouse these individuals, but these are individuals that he actually praised over the years. People who were trying to maintain racism, oppression, keeping black people from being able to have the right to vote, live where we want to live, and live our life freely. Okay? These are the men that he spoke fondly of. Joe Biden, the man who says that you need to check my record. It's crazy. So I just wanted to get that straight on the record. That needs to be told. These are the individuals that he talks about over the years that he was fond of. Birds of the same feather flock together. Now, Joe Biden, I got to read this. There was an article that was out some time back during this year or late 2019. How many of you out there know that back in 1977, Joe Biden, of course, he was against the whole busing program. But how many of you know that he was in favor of certain programs that were of a racial nature? Joe Biden made the statement that he's concerned. Let me just say it right here. Old comments from 1977 resurfaced, quoting Joe Biden as saying that a non-orderly racial integration policy would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle. He then said that unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a racial jungle, the jungle being a racial jungle with the tension having built so high that it's going to explode at some point. Former Vice President Joe Biden has been facing some scrutiny about his past, and these comments have resurfaced. This quote from Joe Biden was originally discovered by the University of Southern California Law School professor and scholar, and first reported by the New York Times, which published a lengthy story on Biden's recorded on busing and school desegregation on these issues. So that's Joe Biden. That is the quote. This is the same Joe Biden that told Charlamagne, I'm not going to say the other name because he ain't no God to me. Well, I said it now, but Charlamagne tried to jam him about, well, you know, black folks been supporting you, but this is the history that Charlamagne in the Breakfast Club is not going to attack him with. If he was, when he comes on their show, I guarantee you're not going to have the Breakfast Club confront him about these particular issues as it relates to his record with hanging out with these types of individuals, praising these kind of individuals, these segregationists, these racist individuals like the Jesse Helms of the world, the Strong Thurmans, the George Wallaces of the world. He's not going to challenge him. They're not going to challenge him. They're going to ask the fluffy questions. Well, are you going to get a black woman on your ticket? Okay, that's a legitimate question, but they're not going to go deep into this man's history. They're going to give him a fluff interview because that's what the Breakfast Club does. They don't do hard-hitting, edgy material that gets to the heart of the matter. That's why they're not black media. I just brought up to your attention the individuals that he hung out with, that he praised. And let's not forget that Bill Clinton was a part of this. And I'm not sitting up here and saying that I'm not saying the Republican Party's any better, because the Republican Party is damn sure no better than the Democratic Party. They're two birds of the same wing. You got a right wing, you got a left wing. One screws you with Vaseline, that would be the Democrats. One screws you without Vaseline, that would be the Republican Party. And I've got to say that and be truthful. But this is the kind of man that he was laughing and grinning with when he passed the bill with this racist Dixiecrat, Strong Thurmond. Then you got Eastland, another Dixiecrat that he was fussing around with. And then you got all 6 of them on here on the screen as a reminder to you. And I got to remind you again that Joe Biden has praised these segregationists. He praised them and crafted that drug bill back in 82. It was 82, 84, 86, and 88, in which you had the co-authors, Joe Biden, along with Strom Thurmond, crafting this crime bill, which had devastating effects to the black community. That's the truth. And that's what Charlamagne and his breakfast disaster is not going to confront this man about. Talking about, you can't do this to black media, as his wife shut that interview down, saying, we got to end this now. That's what politicians do. They duck and dive. So with that said, thank you, everybody. This is the Information Man. I'm going to always tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
When it comes to these types of issues. Take care. I'm going to say this to you very clearly, everybody, before I end. Politicians are like rats. You can't trust them. And I want to let everyone know, once again, thank you for being here, watching the program. You can catch me on Twitter at Clinton06 is my Twitter. And my Instagram is Information Man Show. Check me out over there. And go ahead and subscribe to the second channel, Information Man Speaks Podcast. And and don't forget to check out my podcast, the Information Man Speaks Podcast, on these platforms. You've got Spotify, you've got SoundCloud, you got Intune Radio, Stratcher Radio. You've got Anchor, SoundCloud. Of course, I said that before. You've got Spreaker. Google Podcasts. I'm on a bunch of them, folks, so check them all out. I appreciate you all being here. I'm going to get on out of here. This is the Information Man. And like I said before, most importantly, before I go, is I need everybody to share this video in your social media. I definitely would appreciate that, because that's always helpful to gain more traction with the video and gain more subscribers and support like I'm getting from you all out there. Thank you. And I'm going to put this up as I end the show. And remember that politicians are rats. At the end of the day, they're rats. You can't always trust what they say. Beware what they say, but always check their history when they get to setting up there talking about what they've been doing, particularly for the black community. Thank you, everybody. This is the Information Man Show.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information Man
Tell
Show.
the truth. Tell the truth.
Do you want truth?
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
If you don't want truth, this is not the channel for you.
Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Tell the truth.
Yes. Truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
In the White House, I'm not gonna say his name.
Jack Lake.
Tell the truth.
If you want truth,
Tell the truth.
the Information Show is the place for you. Truth.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make
We're
sure
trying to examine, open up one's mind, and understand the shit that's happening in American society and around the world. Information Man Show.
Information is power.
Tell the truth.
We got to ring the bell to wake the world up.
Information is
Tell the truth.
power.
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Information Man Show.
Tell the truth.
Yes. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
In the White House, I'm not gonna say his name.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
We will make America great again.
You need truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
That's right. Truth. This is the Information Man Show.